All right, there we go. So it's recording. It's starting recording. Okay, so it's recording now. So tonight we have Joseph Pessano.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead and I'll let you give the introduction since I know that you know you better than me.
Yeah, well, I'm very thankful that you have me here. Really appreciate you reaching out. That was very kind, and happy to be able to share whatever this conversation leads us into. I've been a coach for 16 years. During that time, I have definitely had some fun trials and tribulations, but life for me is all about change and how to grow from that change and become the best version of ourselves, and bringing my clients and people I interact with along for the ride.
So you're a hypnotherapist.
So I'm not a hypnotherapist. I do practice NLP. I also am a movement therapist. It's like a strength. I help people with strength.
So you don't consider NLP to be hypnotherapy?
NLP does have hypnotherapy in it, 100%. It absolutely does. The way I tackle I wouldn't call myself a hypnotherapist, but the way I tackle NLP is I do a lot of reframing. I do things like future past communications. So I wouldn't ever say that I'm putting somebody in a trance, which I would tend to think of hypnotherapy. That would be hypnotherapy. You can correct me if I'm wrong in that, but I generally don't put people in trances.
So I've never heard of anybody doing NLP without them being at least in a light state of trance. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a deep state, but I've always considered NLP to be a form of hypnotherapy, just like QHHT, regression release, clinical, and on and on. I mean, all the different types. But I don't know if there was a guy I interviewed the other night or a while back who did an NLP, and he was Greek and living in the UK, and he actually he claimed to have learned directly from Richard Bandler. So I thought that was pretty impressive. I had never met anybody who had worked directly with Bandler or Grinder.
That is impressive. And I actually believe that we are always under a certain state of hypnotic rhythm.
Which means?
Which means that we do things oftentimes without realizing what it is that we're doing. For an example, so many times people will pick up their phone just to pick up their phone. And then the next thing that happens, they pick up their phone, they open up Instagram or Facebook. Then the next thing they know, they get sucked into it. Then they get frustrated by it. And they say to themselves, I don't want to do this anymore. They put their phone back in their pocket. The next thing they know, they're reaching back for their phone. The same thing happens again. It's a hypnotic rhythm. The hypnotic rhythm, if all of a sudden you're sitting on the couch and you get up because you feel like you just want to eat and you're not hungry. So you go back and you're like, well, I'm not hungry. I sit back down to the couch. I get up. I go back. I do the whole sequence again of going to the fridge. I open up the fridge. There's a certain hypnotic rhythm that we get into. So under a certain guise, we are always under a certain type of hypnosis.
Well, I ran into a lady who if you looked at her office or her building, you actually see it on the outside. She said hypnotherapist, but if you sit down and talk to her, she was more of a psychiatrist who used hypnotherapy as a subset of psychiatry, and she said that one of the things she did in her practice was to help people break trances, to get out of them. And so she basically said the same thing you're saying, and that is that we're in a state of trance off and on, or various levels of trance all day and night. And people, the average person's could be in more of a state of trance, than less, depending on, you know, who you're dealing with. But I guess breaking trance rather than making trance is just as valid if you're doing hypnotherapy or NLP or anything else. So what was the other thing you said you did besides NLP? Tell me the other part again.
I do a lot of strength work with people. So how the body moves and how the body feels can carry a lot of weight of past trauma. And sometimes when the body moves in a particular way, it releases that trauma. And so when we are able to have the body move the way it should be moving, we actually can release trauma from the past simply by how our body moves. And just as I'm sure you've heard that there's a psychosomatic where somebody might think that they're sick, they just keep thinking they're sick, they think they're sick, the next thing they know, they're sick. We carry pain, we carry trauma in our body, and through movement, I tend to help people relieve that pain and trauma.
So what type of movement do you get them to do?
Pretty much everything. Any type of movement that you can think of, from crawling to Olympic lifting to just body weight, any meditation, sitting postures, laying postures. It's truly extraordinary. Even something so simple as laying on your belly, how that can bring up certain things from the past or even current pain that somebody might be experiencing that they don't even realize they're experiencing until they're put in that position.
So what you said, you've got a book published and you're finishing your second one?
I'm working on my second one. However, after talking with my editor, I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo quite a bit of Harmonious, because now that I'm about 4 years after Harmonious, I went back and reread it, and I still love a lot that's in it, but I could have definitely expounded more on some of the topics that I just kind of glanced over. And so I'd like to go back and touch up that before I finish off the second book.
So you're going to redo your original book?
Yes, sir. Yes,
how long did it take you to write that one, Harmonious?
Yeah, so at the beginning, it took me, I was working on it for about 2 years, and I felt like I was getting nowhere. And then I gave it to my editor, and I said, just, give me some insight. She suggested I move a couple pieces around. I did what she said. I didn't even bother looking to where I moved some of the pieces. I just did some rearranging. The next thing I realized, I felt like I was 40% finished before she gave me this insight. And then after I moved a few pieces, she gave me a tip on one of the pieces to move, which once I did that, all of a sudden I felt like I was 80% done. After that, I was just on a mission, and it took me about 3.5, 4 months after that to finish the book, which was pretty awesome.
So you're talking about the first writing of Harmonious?
Yeah.
Okay. And
oh my God, fucking white bullshit.
yeah. Hold on a second.
I'm not sure what that
So,
was.
You want to be on the show, Deborah?
Yeah. No, not you.
Can you shut the door, please?
Shop.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Right.
Did you hear that?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, my wife is a pretty strange lady.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. I think she's back again. She wants to be in the show.
Oh, I love.
Hold on a second.
Listen.
Are we done?
No. Cut it.
I'm in the middle of recording. Do you mind? Thanks.
How long have you been doing these recordings, my man?
You're my 13th.
All right, fantastic. What got you into doing this?
Oh, just I don't know. It's hard to explain. Were you an Art Bell fan?
Say that one more time.
Were you an Art Bell fan?
I don't really know. No, tell me.
So you don't know who Art Bell is?
I know who Art Bell is, but I couldn't tell you much about the person. So if there's something you'd like to share, I would love to hear.
Well, he's just a very famous radio personality that retired wealthy in the Philippines. But he was, after Rush Limbaugh, he was the second most syndicated radio talk show host in the world at the time when Rush was big. And I don't know how many years he was on radio, but he was, anybody's into conspiracies and paranormal and aliens and all the things I'm into, pretty much everybody in that area knows who Art Bell is. So anyway, he was somebody who gave a lot of interviews that were still, many of them are on YouTube, but there's probably hundreds of interviews that he did. They're still on YouTube, but I really don't know how many. I never searched for all of them. I know some of them that are on there. He interviewed Father Malachi Martin about exorcisms, and Malachi Martin wrote Hostage to the Devil, and about 6 living people that had that he did exorcisms of, and there was police. There was airline pilots and policemen that had, like, there was one UFO sighting that there was a craft that was chased by police across 6 different counties, a single craft, and he had some of those police on his show. And then there was a alien craft sighting that was seen by 2 different airline flights at the same time. It was like between the 2, and so he had members of both those crews on. He kind of moved the needle of understanding of aliens and paranormal forward for the world. But he also, on the downside, looked into some things that were kind of bogus too. So he's kind of like everybody else in radio that's famous. They got kind of both sides of, if they're into promoting their show, stuff like that, they're going to have, a negative side as well as a positive. They got both sides. They people that get that high in the radio business tend to promote themselves a little too much because it's necessary to make a living at it that way for radio. So anyway, how did you get into doing body work, or what did you call it? Strength training.
Yeah, strength training. I generally will refer to it as like a movement practice. And I got into it. So I started my business 16 years ago. I got certified basically a little over 16 years ago. So around 17 years ago, I was battling drinking. I was basically partying like a rock star because that was what I had wanted to be. And I was fed up with how my body was feeling and looking. And so a friend of mine had said that she was going to get into this business, basically of helping people get their bodies into a better place. I decided it sounded like a great idea. I loved it. And it really, it opened my eyes to some of the pains that I had been carrying in my life from past. And as I began to get my body to move better and in a healthy way, those traumas came up and I was able to deal with them and then basically get rid of them, let them go. And that was profound to me. And so I wanted to be able to share this with other people. And I'm a deep meditator. I meditate pretty much all day long. I think it's a very valuable tool that everyone has the ability to do. So I incorporate meditation along with my movement practice. And that's been the key for me. And I've been thriving for 16 years now.
So you got in as a client first.
No, I actually wasn't a client. I was my own client. I was my own client. A friend of mine, she was going to be going into training people. And I thought it sounded like a great thing. So I thought I'm going to do it too. So yeah, I wasn't a client first. I was basically my own client and still my own guinea pig. I'm still learning how to make myself move better.
So what type of meditation do you do?
My primary practice is Vipassana. Are you familiar with Vipassana?
I've heard of it, but no, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, so Vipassana meditation is the meditation practice that Gautama, the Buddha, basically bestowed onto everybody or gave everybody this gift of Vipassana. And essentially it's observing sensations in a non-reactionary way. It's really beautiful. And, you know, we have sensations throughout our body all the time. And when it comes to being able to observe them, when you begin to observe these sensations, like an itchy nose, I'm sure you've had an itchy nose. Instead of immediately going to itch the nose, you just observe the itch, and then you can witness the itch go away. If the itch doesn't go away after like 5 minutes, maybe there's something on your nose, so it's okay to go ahead and, you know, wipe the nose. But the idea is, instead of getting an itch and instantly wiping your nose, it's just to observe the sensation. And we all have sensations, whether it's the air passing through our nostrils, an itch on the nose, a breeze going past your face, achiness in your hips, in your back, watching it, and basically just being the witness. And it's beautiful.
So it's mindfulness meditation.
It is definitely mindfulness meditation, essentially at its finest.
So how many clients do you work with on average in a week? Just out of curiosity.
Yes. So I see about 9 to 10 people a day. And some of those people I see twice a week. Some of those people I see 3 times a week. Then I've got some people that I see once a week. So I'm seeing about 18, 19 people a week.
So
Those are different people.
if you only see 18 to 9, you said 18 to 19 people a week,
Yes, sir.
and you see 9 to 10 a day.
Yes, sir. And some of those people I see 3 times a week. Some people I see
Oh, I
twice.
see what you're saying. Okay, all right. So you're seeing the same people 3 or more times a week.
Correct.
And how do you get your how do you do your advertising? Through word of mouth?
All word of mouth. I don't place ads. I don't go out knocking on doors. It's all word of mouth at this point.
So how much do you charge?
I'd rather not talk about that right now. Because sometimes it could be a sliding scale. I do offer every now and then, I'll open up a couple sessions a week and I'll give away free sessions if the person is in need of it. And I do that all the time. So I would just rather not talk about prices right now. I would just rather talk about.
That's fine. So you sit in full lotus or semi lotus? What do you do?
When my body is happy with me, full lotus. And then when I'm not paying attention to it the way I should, then half lotus.
Okay.
But I'm also doing my meditating when I'm walking around out in public or I'm having conversations with people, I'm doing my best to meditate all day long. So sitting down isn't a requirement for meditation.
Of course.
Yeah.
So when you got to go tonight, when you have to leave at the end of this interview, you have a client session, right?
I'm done for the day. I start my day pretty early and then I am done for the day. And basically what I do is I set up my evening time is for my family. So I kind of have a hard stop on how I work. So I don't want to interrupt the flow of my family time because it's very important to me to spend time appropriately with my family.
So you have a wife and kids.
I've got a wife and puppy. My wife and I have been together for about 15 years. We got married 4 years ago, and it's absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary.
What kind of puppy do you have?
Lhasa Apso.
Oh, a little guy.
It's a little guy. It's a little guy. She got me into the little guy. I had been interested in getting a bigger dog, but since it was really her first dog, I've had many dogs through my life, but her first dog, and she really wanted a little one, so we went with the little one.
So do you do more strength training or strength work, or do you do more NLP, or how do you decide?
Yeah, it's all good. I apologize. Go ahead, Charles.
Which one do you do more, or do you combine them, or how do you decide what you do? Take me through a typical session you have with one of your clients.
That's a great question. So I combine everything. Everything is all inclusive. So I don't separate the NLP. If somebody comes in and let's say that they are, talking about how they can't stop eating a particular cookie, then, maybe we'll work on fixing that, remapping it and doing the like to dislike. It's a typical thing, right? In NLP is like to dislike or swish patterns. My favorite thing though is reframing. Reframing is very easy and it only takes a few minutes to do, and you don't have to set aside a separate thing. So let's say that I'm working with a client and we're doing a particular movement pattern, and they make a comment about the movement pattern in a negative way that isn't benefiting them in the movement pattern. For example, if I have them doing a crawling drill, crawling is very good for the human body. We started off as infants crawling, and that's what got us to walking, to running. So we should still be crawling as adults. And they've shown a lot of research in the world of neuroscience. There's a great book, The Brain That Changes Itself. And they actually do quite a bit of study on crawling in that book and how potent crawling is for us. And somebody might say to me, oh, my body doesn't like crawling because of this, because of that. I tend to go into reframing and change the language. And then oftentimes, without even me saying to change the language, because most of my clients have been working with me for a very long time now. The oldest client I have working with me has been with me for 15 years. And they now, if they hear me reframe something, they will actually say what I just said in my language, in my wording, and that tends to make them move better. So I'm a big believer in reframing. And so my sessions are, even before my client walks in, I'm a pretty intuitive person. I can almost sense and feel the energy that's going to be coming into the situation. And I begin to program the session with them before they even arrive. And more often than not, the programming that I've put together tends to be the right call. And they actually comment quite frequently that they don't know how I do it. They don't understand how it is that I know the mood they're going to be in or what's happening. And so it's typical. There's really no typical session. It's really the energy that I feel for my client. that dictates the direction that we're going to go.
So I spent like one day learning NLP. I'm familiar with the where you put them in a theater and they're watching. It's like it's a regression, but they're instead of re-experiencing the event, they're just sitting in a theater watching the event occur on the movie screen, and then they'll cut what they're seeing in half, and then enforce where you're seeing it twice, and then 4 times, and you're basically just desensitizing it by moving them back further and further back from the event. The other one, the guy I was telling you about earlier that I interviewed, he mentioned another one where you're like turning down the volume, and that's one I haven't learned. And there's probably a whole bunch. How many NLP techniques did you learn when you learned NLP?
So extensive. They were quite extensive in teaching. So they taught us a lot of NLP techniques, which for myself, I didn't want to try to master all of the ones they taught. I still work on some of the ones they taught. The ones that I really focused in on dialing in, so that way I could really hone those, is swish pattern, doing the like to dislike, reframing. I really like the one you were talking about with the movie theater and basically disassociating yourself from it, looking at yourself, watching the movie that's on the screen, moving farther and farther away from it, desensitizing yourself. There's a couple other things that I have learned. One is doing things like taking a spot, if you've got pain in a particular spot, giving that spot a color to it, pulling that color out of your body, and basically moving that color until it changes color, and then putting it back, and it tends to not have the same level of pain. That's a pretty powerful tool. There's another one where you picture the beautiful picture of how you want your, basically the moment you're in to be. For example, if I'm feeling sad, I could take a picture of something that is beautiful, maybe a beautiful piece of scenery, and I take that picture and I expand the picture. And what I do is then I pull myself down and into the picture. I see myself into the picture, and then I step out of the picture while retaining that feeling I had while in the picture. That's a pretty powerful tool as well. It's easily guided. I really like doing chaining anchors. Chaining anchors is a beautiful thing. That's very easy to do. Another one that actually is relatively simple to do and doesn't really take a lot of time is parts integration. There's a lot of simple things in our life that parts integration can be used very quickly with. However, there are also some very, very big moments in our life where it takes a little more time to utilize parts integration as a tool, to be very, very specific about the questions you're asking. Somebody who says, I don't know, part of me wants to go to a party, another part of me doesn't want to go to a party. That's something that you can nail in a couple of minutes quite easily. Something that could be bigger would be whether or not you want to have a child with the person you're with. That's a much deeper parts integration. You want to be more focused with that, and that could take a longer time to iron out.
The only other NLP technique that I can think that I remember was where you're like you probably already mentioned it, but where you're regressing somebody to the event, or you're, whether you're regressing or not, you're getting them into a state where they are in this, like say, the state of mind that they get into, the negative state of mind where they get up and go get something to eat out of the refrigerator, right? They get into a negative mind state and they get up and go and eat, right? So you take them to that state of mind, and then as soon as you get them in that state of mind and get it fully there, then instantly you have them recall the most positive thing they've ever experienced, and you take them to that. And then you keep going back and forth between the two until in the future, instead of having them get in the negative state of mind and getting up and go to the refrigerator, they automatically switch to the positive state of mind. And so that it cuts out the going to the refrigerator, right? You know what do they call that one? Do you know?
Swish pattern.
Switch pattern. All right.
Pattern. It's very powerful. It's very powerful.
So do you do more NLP or do you more strength training, or just a combination?
It's combination.
Straight combination.
It's a combination. It's when my client walks in and sees me, or if we're doing video, it's dictated on them. And they trust me enough that if I say, hey, let's do this, that they say, okay, let's do what you're saying, because they've been with me long enough and they know that I'm going to do what's best for them.
So, have you ever gotten, I don't remember the questions I asked you, nor, I mean, I sort of remember them, but I don't remember your answers. But so, you've never done QHH, you've never done regression per se, correct? Even when you take somebody to the state that causes them to go eat, you don't consider that a regression?
No, that is a regression to a point. Originally, when you had asked, do I do hypnotherapy, I was really saying I don't really put people into trances, even though you can consider doing like a swish pattern, a particular level of a trance. But it's not for me to say that I'm hypnotizing this person, because I don't see it as hypnotizing, because they're 100% aware of everything that is being said and done, and they can open their eyes at any point and not feel like they're in this hypnotic state. And there's nothing I could say to them that would make them do something that they wouldn't do.
So if they're in a trance at all, you're working with them in a very light trance.
Yeah, it would be very, very light. And once again, I already feel that everybody is in a trance to a point.
Right.
So I'm just kind of working in the trance they're already in.
So
it's like a dream.
Go ahead.
It's like a dream. I'm just visiting them in their waking dream and helping to guide them during the waking dream for the little bit of time I get to be with them.
Sure. So have you ever experienced anything that you consider paranormal?
I definitely have. I've lived with ghosts. I have seen UFOs. I definitely have. 100%. 100%.
Oh, so neat. My dog is always wanting to be in the chair with me.
I totally understand. Mine generally is as well. My wife came home and is taking him out for his walk. That way I could be here with you.
What's his name?
Wookie.
Wookie.
Like from Star Wars.
Right. That's cool.
What about yours, my man?
Bebe.
Bebe? Excellent.
Yeah, he's a little cockapoo.
Nice.
So, what's the strangest thing you've ever experienced in your life?
I would definitely say some of the ghosts that I've witnessed have been quite strange. When I was a little kid, there was a ghost living basically in our condo. And I remember a couple of nights where it would slam open and close the closet door. And of course, I'd go to look, and there would never be anything there. So that was my first, and that was when I was about 7 years old. Then I would probably say one of the most unique experiences I ever had. I was living with a friend in Palo Alto, and her father had passed away in the home that we were living. And I was sitting on the couch, and to the backyard was a bank of windows. And when you're looking out in the backyard at night, because the lights are on, you can see inside the house. So I was sitting on the couch, basically watching the sun go down, and now the lights are on in the house, and I can see the reflection into the kitchen. And all of a sudden, I see Chauncey, the person who had passed away in the house. He walked into the kitchen, opened up the freezer door, grabbed a bottle of vodka that wasn't there, closed the freezer door, and then started walking back to his room. At that moment, I turned, leaned over the couch, and looked down the hall, and there was nothing there. And I saw him as clear as day. Clear as day. It was like he was there. It was extraordinary.
And the bottle looked totally real too.
Oh man, it was one of those handles. Totally real. 100%. 100%. It was as if he was there. Absolutely.
So you've seen some UFOs. Have you seen any craft up close?
I've never seen the craft up close, only far away. My first experience was I was sitting in a backyard, and I was looking at the moon, and I saw 3 dots basically right near the moon. And I just thought they were so beautiful. I hadn't seen them before. It seemed so new to me. And then one of the dots began to slowly move away. So I just kept watching this one dot slowly move away. Then one of the other dots began to do like this circling pattern and then was gone. And then the last dot just took off like a shooting star. The next thing I know, they weren't there anymore. It was mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. The second time I saw one, by the way, I love being outside. So stargazing and looking up at the sky is not something new for me. I was outside, and I was just enjoying the night sky, and I saw what looked like a shooting star come into the sky, make a 90-degree turn, and take off. And there's no way a star is doing that. A satellite's not doing that. It was clearly something I can't identify, or what's the new thing? UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, is what the
Yeah, sure.
they want to call them now. Yeah, UFO, unidentified aerial phenomenon, however you want to call it. That's what it was. So those are 2 of the really critical ones that I could say have stayed with me. Other times I've seen things, whether or not they were maybe a satellite or a shooting star, I can't say. But I'm very happy with the disclosure that's beginning to happen. I'm happy with people in other countries coming forward and basically saying, hey, these UFOs, they absolutely exist. We've been studying them for years. They are light years ahead of us in technology, and we're as kind of guessing about this as you are. And of course, alien technology is really how we got this stuff, right?
Well, yeah. If you believe that the Star Trek show was the core
The tricorder.
well the communications devices they had. If you believe that was the precursor for the cell phone, then yeah.
It could be. It could be. There's so much technology that we aren't even aware of yet, that
Sure.
we know the government has and they're playing with. And so We don't even know what they have yet. For all we know, a lot of the triangles in the sky that we're seeing right now are government.
Some people believe that.
Yep.
Quite a few people believe that.
I don't know. It could be a visitor coming down to check us out. I mean, we are the insane asylum for the universe here on Earth.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah. So have you ever had to deal with attaching spirits?
So I have, and so meditation is an extraordinary way to get them off and out. They just can't handle that vibration. They just can't handle the vibration. And there's another really cool trick that I learned a long time ago. And I don't know how I learned it, but it came to me naturally. And essentially find flowers, take the pollen from the flowers, put it on your hands so that your hands are fully pollinated, and then cover your head and face. And then after a few moments, go and wash it off in the shower, preferably cold shower.
Any particular type of flower?
No. And in fact, I would say find a flower that you love. Find a flower that makes you happy. The happier you are, the more difficult it is for a negative being to clamp onto you. The sadder you are, oh, that's when you're prime target. Happiness is like the natural deflector of that.
Have you had to deal with those issues with your clients at all?
I actually, thankfully, have never had to deal with that with any of my clients. I have seen it with people on the street. I like to talk to people on the street. I think that's a very important thing in life, is communicating with strangers. And I have seen that with people on the street.
Hold on one second. I had to let my dog out. He likes going in and out of the room a lot.
Yeah, no, our dog as well. He's so funny. He'll scratch at the door to come in. He'll scratch at the door to go out. He's just a character.
They come and go a lot.
Totally.
So, so you've never seen any. You've seen ghosts. You've seen UFOs from a distance, and you've dealt with. So, when you were talking about removing attaching spirits from yourself. So, did you think you had one or more, or what did you come up with?
It felt like I had one. And I feel like I have had. This was years and years and years ago. I felt like I had a couple that were trying to get me, and I did what I do, and I stay positive. I run through the things, like that whole pollen and flower. That was a big one. And then the meditation is a massive one. I can't speak highly enough of the meditation. That's the game changer. That is the ultimate game changer.
Well, I did ayahuasca in the Peruvian jungle, and the thing that we did there, that was sort of a thing you shouldn't do, but the thing we did that was positive was they had you shower in, or they had you shower and they had you pour basically a container full of roses that were in water. It was rose water.
Okay.
I guess the shamans had blessed the water or whatever, and that you would just go into a shower and pour that over yourself. And I think maybe that did help with my attaching spirits. So Anyway, so how did you learn your NLP? Who did you learn from?
I learned it from the Empowerment Partnership with Dr. Matt James.
And how long was your training?
It was 4 days. It was 4 days. So I did those 4 days. And then I also did another training with Matt, which was the coaching of influence and speakers of influence, which that was 2 weeks. That was 2 weeks. And I loved it. Dr. Matt, he's just a blessing. That guy, he has just the right intentions. I really appreciated learning from him. And one of the things that stood out to me was when I walked into the room from my practitioner course, was just the feeling of just this welcoming, compassionate light. And it was just magnificent. And I felt like I was at the right place. And I would suggest everybody learn NLP, even if they don't plan on working with clients. But if they just want to have some tools for themselves, NLP is amazing.
Was it expensive?
So it was not expensive through the Empowerment Partnership. I think they charge $199 for the 4 days.
Oh, that's cheap.
Oh, it's super cheap. It's super cheap. And what's really cool is they equate it like this. They say that the other courses that you take, that's when it gets to be expensive. Like their master's training, I think it's, up in the $7,000 range.
Wow.
It's like 2 weeks long and it's really in depth. But that's how they're able to offset the practitioner, is because they know we're going to teach, and they teach you so much in the practitioner course. I mean, it's a lot. It is a lot that they teach you. And so, but they say, we're going to teach you so much in this practitioner course that we feel confident that what you learn, you're going to want to keep learning more. And so that's how it kind of offsets the cost of the practitioner, is because, what they're offering is legit and it's high quality. So I would definitely encourage the Empowerment Partnership would be the place I'd go again and again. And I'll be getting my master practitioner through them as well.
What's the guy's name again?
Matt James, Dr. Matt James. So he was one of the youngest students. He also, I believe, I could be wrong. So I know he worked with Tony Robbins when Tony Robbins was just kind of a newbie at this whole NLP thing. But I believe he did meet either Bandler. He met one of the two guys. I don't remember who, but he's been deep in NLP for a very, very long time. And he knows his stuff. That guy, he knows his stuff.
How long have you been in practice now?
So I've been in practice now for about it'll be 2 years in February.
Oh, so you're new.
I'm new. The funny thing though is a lot of the things I learned, I realized that I had been doing for decades. I just didn't know the names of it. I just didn't know that actually the thing that I was doing actually had a name. So when I actually took this practitioner course, I felt right at home, because I was like, I'm already practicing this. Now I'm just able to put a name to what it is. The parts integration, I was already practicing parts integration. Reframing, I was already practicing reframing.
So you've only been doing NLP for a couple of years, but you've been doing the strength training longer? Is that the deal?
Oh yeah, I've been doing the strength training for about 16 years. But a lot of the things that I learned in NLP, I had been doing for this whole time. I just didn't know that it was called reframing. I didn't know it was called parts integration. I've been doing that. So even though I just got my certification not that long ago, a lot of these things I've already been employing.
So, well, I don't know what else to ask you other than, what if there's something about your practice or website or something you want to tell the audience so that they have a way of getting a hold of you other than looking for your name,
Sure.
Google your name. How would they find you?
Sure. My website is healwithjoseph.com. It's very basic website. Not trying to sell anybody on anything there. I think I give like 5 free tips on ways to change your life right now. Healwithjoseph.com. And if I could leave the audience with anything, is just love yourself. Love yourself like you want to be loved, because you can love yourself greater than anyone can love you. And once you love yourself at such a deep level, then love will begin to radiate and pour out of you. And you'll become boundless love. And that's what we're supposed to be, is boundless love.
So when you first started learning strength training, who trained you with that?
I got my certification at a place called NPTI, National Personal Training Institute. And Frank Rolek was my teacher. And he was basically a fountain of knowledge when it came to the body and how to train. So I feel very fortunate. And then I have, of course, continued getting my certifications. I'm a Z Health certified, which Z Health is all about the mind-body connection. I'm also an Olympic lifting coach. I'm a kettlebell strength and conditioning coach. I've got my certification for kettlebells through the RKC. So I'm RKC certified, although you have to keep getting that certification through RKC over and over again. So I don't continue to get my certification through them, but that's where I got my certification, was through RKC. And yeah, that's the basics right there, my friend.
So when you were originally learning strength training, you were actually focused on actually lifting as opposed to doing all the other types of strengths.
Yeah, and I realized as I was learning how to lift and move my body, that's when past traumas began to come up. And I had to identify them and face them and confront them, because I'm all about the facing your fears. I think that's the way we get through life. And so that's really what made me realize that when my body moves a particular way that it hasn't moved in a long time, past comes up and I need to face it in order to move on. So that's really, it was when I was going to school is when I realized how closely knit the mind-body connection is.
So how long did it take you to go from your first clients? Were they you were training them how to lift weights, or how did that evolve into the other types of strength?
Good question. Good question. So it all started with the lifting, but I quickly realized that my clients felt so at ease talking to me that I almost became like a psychiatrist to them instantly. So even though the idea was for me to just be a strength coach for them, it morphed instantly into me helping them with their own battles and overcoming their difficulties in life. So even though I went into it purely with the intention of I'm going to be a strength coach, it instantly morphed into I'm a strength coach who helps the mind. And there's times when it's more mind than strength.
It seems like you need to come up with a better name for what you do than strength training.
It is. I know, right? That's why I tend to call it a movement practice, because it tends to shift people away from the idea of just lifting weights, but then that doesn't even cover it. Like my clients will tell you that doesn't even cover it. It's not even close, because it's all about, I'm a firm believer of, we get the mind in a good place, the body work becomes easier, because when we uncover the things that the body is going to uncover, the mind is already in a better place. So I definitely am more mind focused than I am, let's see how much heavy weight we can lift, because that will come as the mind gets better.
But you still call what you do strength training.
Yeah, because that's kind of the easiest way to explain to people.
But you're not, are you still helping people lift weights still?
100%.
Are you?
100%.
So
All my clients are thriving, which is the beauty. And their mind is getting better.
but there are how big a percentage of your clients actually lift weights?
All of them.
All of them.
It's essentially part of the practice. It's essentially part of the practice.
So how many clients do you have total, relative ballpark, that are current, not past, over the years, but I mean, they're still current with you now?
Yeah, it's probably around 18 current.
18. Okay.
Yeah, it's about, I think that's about what it is. I can pull out my calendar and look and count it, but I don't want to really count right now.
Relatively speaking.
But I'm seeing about 9 to 10 people a day, and I see a good amount of them 3 times a week, some of them twice a week, a few I see only once a week, and then every now and then there's one that I see every couple months. But for the most part, I've got clients that I'm just seeing regularly.
So when you work with your clients with strength training, you're working in a gym or in a different type of room?
It's a private training studio, and we have one of the largest outdoor training areas in the Bay Area. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I'm training outside all day long. So when COVID hit and they said you have to do stuff outside, I was already outside. I prefer to be outside. So all my training is done outside. We have a huge outdoor training facility. So we're training outside. Sometimes my client might walk in. I can take a look at them as they walk into me, and we need to go for a walk around the block and talk. Sometimes they walk in and they are in the place where they're ready to move and do something extraordinary with their bodies. It's all dictated on how they're feeling.
So how many of them do heavy weights? I mean, they're all lifting weights. How many of them do you consider that are really doing the heavy stuff? Is it all of them, or?
Heavy is relative. Heavy is relative. So I've got a couple clients, 86 and 84 years old. Their body weight is heavy for them.
Okay. All right.
Right. I've got a young man who's 64 years old, and he's lifting heavy weights. He's lifting heavy weights. And he wasn't lifting those heavy weights before he met me.
Ah, I got you.
Right. And the other thing is, he also didn't have a certain mental calmness before he met me. Before he met me, he was not in a position mentally to have a state of mind that he has now. So, for example, he loves golfing. His golf game has improved, not necessarily from the lifting of weight, but because his mind is significantly calmer because of the work we've done. So it's a total package deal. Mind body. When people talk about mind body, I have been doing mind body for 16 years. Mindfully.
And so I guess you found that NLP has helped you take it to another level. Is that accurate?
I would definitely say correct. Absolutely. Because now I I understand the tools that I was using before on another level. And so I'm able to use those tools more appropriately and with better efficacy. Because I know how to pinpoint it now.
Well,
Beautiful.
it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for coming on my show. And
Hey.
I guess strength training is still accurate because all your people are lifting weights. So it's not an inaccurate term. It's just, it seems like there's got to be a better term because you're doing a lot more than just lifting weights. So there's no term that you could use because strength training is still accurate. I mean, it's still an accurate term.
Strength training is happening with everybody who I'm with. It's happening with everybody I'm with. So it's accurate. It's just, it's not the full truth. It's not the full truth.
It's just misleading in the sense that that's correct, but it's sort of not correct because it's only a fragment. It may be a big piece, but it's not the whole. And there's no better term that describes the larger construct.
Totally. You see my dilemma there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's accurate, but it's just not reflective of the larger construct, which we don't have a name for yet. You know, strength training plus.
Exactly. That's pretty much how my clients would say it. Strength training plus.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Joseph.
Pleasure speaking with you, Charles, my man. I really, thank you so much for having me on your show, and good luck with these podcasts. I think it's fantastic that you're going out and doing this, my man. It's really cool, dude, and I look forward to listening to these and hearing what you got to say and what you're spreading into the world.
Well, my interviews, I've done about 25, 26, where I'm the interviewee. And I've only done 13 where I'm the interviewer. So I need to do a lot more of the where I'm the interviewer. All right, well, let me stop the recording here. So.